A friend of mine has an autistic child, a teenager, very intelligent child, young boy. He is very talented in many areas, in intellect, but he is autistic. And one of his issues is he needs to know things in advance. Most autistic children need to know things in advance. We cannot spring things on them. Now, that's true of all children. When we say to them, 5 minutes and bedtime, I'm giving you a heads up. Notice we're leaving in 3 minutes. Get ready. Everybody needs that heads up. But in particular, this child is somewhat OCD in that he needs to know exactly what's happening, what's going to happen on this trip, what's going to happen on this outing, what's going to happen today, hour by hour. Otherwise, he gets flustered. He has to know what's happening step by step. So they were going to take a trip to New York and visit various places for therapy, various ideas for therapy for this autistic child, to speak to certain experts. And his son said to him, Dad, I need a direct, specific schedule. I'd like you to print it up for me, hour by hour, where we're going, when we're getting there, what we're doing there, when we're having lunch, when we're going to meet these people, and when we're coming home. So his father printed up a schedule. 9 o'clock, we're leaving for New York. 12:30, we're getting there. 1 o'clock is our first appointment. 2 o'clock, we're going to have lunch. 3 o'clock is our second appointment. 4 o'clock is our last appointment. And we're going to drive home at 7 o'clock after dinner. He gave him a printed schedule. While they were in New York, at around 1 o'clock, they received a call that there was a very, very big doctor, an expert in autism, who they were trying to get an appointment with for many, many months. In fact, over a year. And since they had reached out to the personal assistant and said, we're there in New York right now, is there any possibility of him squeezing us in? And he said, yes. This very big doctor said, I will see you at 1:45. So they drove up at 1:45 to this doctor's office. And his son said, where are we, Dad? We're going to see Dr. X. He said, 1:45, Dr. X is not on the schedule. I'm not going. Father said, sweetheart, we've been working and waiting for an appointment with this doctor for many, many months, over a year. And we're finally here in New York and he's agreed to see us. We have to go see him, even though it's not on the schedule. He said, Dad, you know our agreement. We're supposed to have one doctor we went to at 1 o'clock. It's not 1:45. We're supposed to have lunch now. It's not on the schedule. I'm not going. Dad said, you have to be reasonable and a little bit flexible. I know that you need to be organized and have told to you exactly what's happening step by step. But this is an unusual situation. And in life, you have to be a little bit flexible. He said, Dad, I'm not going. It's not on the schedule and I'm not going. You can't make me. Now, fathers sometimes have it up to here and they let it go. They lose it sometimes. So very exasperated, very frustrated, very overwhelmed with upset, the father turned to his son and said, everything I do for you. Now get out of the car. And the boy was shocked at the father's stern voice and said, okay, Dad, okay. And he got out of the car and went to the appointment. And they got some very good advice and direction from this doctor. A while back, my friend called me and told me this story. And he said, this was a few years ago, he said, and now it's time for Elul. And we say to God, I want a schedule. I want a schedule of the year. I need to know what's happening in April, in May, in June, how the children are doing, how my family is doing, my job is doing. I want a written schedule for the whole year. And when something comes up that's not on our schedule, we say, Hashem, it's not on the schedule. I'm not going. I did not sign up for this. This is not on the list. It's not here on this list. 145 doesn't say we have to face this challenge. It's not on the paper. I'm not going. My friend said to me, I can imagine those same words coming kiviyachol from Hashem. Hashem will turn to us and say, Zizkai, everything I do for you. Now get out of the car. When something happens to us, which is not planned, which is not on the schedule, which is out of the ordinary, which is a challenge, an ordeal, a crisis, and we're not expecting it, it blindsides us. We're not expecting this particular crisis. We didn't have time to psych ourselves up for it. We get angry, upset, frustrated, sad, overwhelmed, anxious, and we turn to Hashem and say, Hashem, this is not in the program. I didn't sign up for this. And imagine what Hashem would say. Zizka, whatever I do for you. Even this. Now get out of the car. We have to realize that whatever happens in our lives is engineered by Hashem for our good. And the Gemara Pesachim tells us that in this world, we make two types of brachas. Hatova metiv, when good things happen, we say, the good who bestows good. We bless God who is the good one who bestows good. And sometimes when we have difficulties and we have a tragedy or a loss, like the loss that happened today in Denver, where a 13-year-old boy, Shmuley Silverberg, Zichron Livracha, whose Levaya is tonight at 10:30, was coming out of the base medrash last night in Denver Yeshiva, Torah Chaim, at 11 o'clock at night, and was caught up in a robbery and was shot and killed. And at that, tonight, unfortunately, his parents are going to make the bracha. Baruch Dayan Ha'emes. Blessed is the true judge. And in our lifetimes, if we have lost a parent, we say those words. Baruch Dayan Ha'emes. Blessed is the true judge. We accept the verdict of Hashem. Hashem says to us, I know this is not on your program. I know it's not on the schedule. But whatever I do for you. Get out of the car. Go do it. Go face it. And we are supposed to answer, Baruch Dayan Ha'emes. You are the source, Baruch, you're the source of true judgment. I accept that it's not on the program, but I'm going to do it anyway because you said so. You put it on the program, even though I didn't want it. I didn't have it on my program. Baruch Dayan Ha'emes. Says the Gemara in Pesachim. In the world to come, when we get to the world to come, there's only one bracha. Hatovu Meti. The good who bestows good. At that time, we'll realize that everything that Hashem did that was not on our program, was not on our schedule, was not expected by us, that gave us challenge and ordeal, that we said on it in this world, Baruch Dayan Ha'emes, blessed is the true judge. In that world, there's only one bracha. When we look at it, we define good differently. That good means growth. And if it caused us to grow, I'm doing this for your growth. It's not pleasant. It's not fun. It's not on your program, but it is tovu meti. It is good. And I'm bestowing this good on you because the definition of good is you're going to grow from this. You're going to grow in character. And the purpose of life, says the Vilna Gaon, is shviras hamidos, to break our character, to break our negative flaws, and to improve ourselves. Everything that happens to us is just a scenario. It's a scene. A scenario is a scene in a movie. We are the players in the movie, and these scenes that are presented to us are merely roadblocks or landmarks, events that happen in our lives. And the real issue is, how are we going to respond to them? We want to say, Hashem, it's not on the program, not on the list, I'm not interested. Thanks, you got the wrong person. Hashem says, whatever I do for you. Now get out of the car. And we have to say, Hatova Miti. We will say at that time, in the world to come, in retrospect, when we see clarity. Very famous story. The Ramban had a student who was dying. And he said to a student, I have a bunch of questions to ask of Hashem. When you get there, come back to me in a dream and tell me the answers to these questions. And unfortunately, his student was nifter. He passed away. And a number of days later, the student came to the Ramban in a dream. And the Ramban said, what are the answers to the questions I gave you? He said, Rebbe, when I came to Shamayim, I looked at the piece of paper and there were no more questions. The questions disappeared. Everything became clear in Shamayim. That's when we become fully conscious. In this world, we're not conscious. We're not fully conscious. We don't see clearly. We have this world, we have confusion. This world is called Olam, a world. And Hashem is Ne'elam, hidden in the world. That's the meaning of the word Olam. Olam, the root word is Ne'elam. He's hidden in the Olam. And our job is Ki La'olam Chazdo. Hodul Hashem Ki Tov, Ki La'olam Chazdo. Says the Meforshim, Ki La'elem Chazdo. Thank God, because his chesed is hidden, and our job is to find it. Ki La'olam Chazdo. To find his goodness within the veil of challenge. That's our job during Elul. The meaning of the words Elul, Ani le dodi, vidodi li, the word le, I am to my beloved, as my beloved is to me. I am to my beloved Hashem, as my beloved is to me. Our job is the letter Lamed, le dodi. I have to walk toward my beloved. I have to yearn for my beloved. And that's why we have questions for Hashem. We don't know the answers to why things happen to us. And Moshe Rabbeinu asked that question. Harini na es drachecha. Show me your ways. And Hashem answered, Lo yirani hadam v'chai. Man cannot know me and see and live. Hashem said, man cannot know me and live. Man cannot understand my ways. Lo machshavosai machshavosechem. Not my ways are your ways. My mind is not your mind. You can't understand God's will and God's decisions. And therefore, our job is lidodi, especially because we don't understand. And perhaps Hashem decided not to tell us why things happen to us, because he wants the lamed. He wants the lidodi, to yearn. If God told us why things were happening, we would sit back and go, oh, well, that's why. Okay. But we wouldn't have the lamed. We wouldn't have the lidodi. We wouldn't yearn to understand. What he wants from us is the yearning to understand, the yearning to understand. My Rabbi said to me, I said to him, Rabbi, why does God do these things? Why is he doing this to me? And he said, I wouldn't want to believe in a God who I understood. God is bigger, higher, deeper, most profound, almighty. And I don't understand. And I want to understand. If he gave me the answer, I wouldn't want to understand anymore. But the purpose of life is to yearn to understand, to get closer, to strive, to yearn for understanding. And that's what he does not reveal to us. Tzadik baraloi. The Gemara says in Brachos, what is the meaning when Moshe Rabbeinu said to Hashem, show me your glory. Harein nas kvodecha. Gemara says what that means is, tell me why tzadik baralo. Why does a righteous person have difficulties? Why does a bad person have good? And God said, I'm not going to explain that to you. That's a question which is being asked for thousands of years by all philosophers, and the very first person who asked that question, Moshe Rabbeinu in the Torah. If Moshe Rabbeinu was not told the answer, we certainly are not told the answer. Why didn't Hashem tell us the answer? Because he wants ani li dodi v'dodi li. I am to my beloved, as my beloved is to me. He wants us to look for the answer. He wants us to fight for the answer. He wants us to strive for the answer. He wants us to battle with him. That's why Yaakov wrestled with the angel. Yaakov wrestled with the angel because he was wrestling with his Yetzer Hara, wrestling with Hashem. And his name was changed from Yaakov to Yisrael, Kisarisa. Im Elokim va'adam v'tuchal. You battled, you wrestled, Sarisa. That's what Yisrael means. B'nai Yisrael means those who wrestle with Hashem. I want to know God. Why? But he wants us to ask that question. If he told us the answer, we wouldn't ask the question anymore. We just know the answer. We're not supposed to know the answer. We're supposed to hear, why? Please tell me. I want to know. He wants that yearning. That's why Hashem didn't give the opportunity for Sarah and Avraham Avinu to have a child. She didn't have a womb. And yet, they wanted the tefillos of Avraham and Sarah. Shamayim wanted the tefillos, the prayers. The Gemara says that Hashem wants the tefillos. Mis'aveh letfilos tzadikim. He wants the tefillos, he yearns. Mis'aveh. Hashem yearns for the tefillos of the tzadikim. Sarah was barren. Rivka was barren. Leah was barren. Rachel was barren. Why? He wanted them to daven. He wanted them to learn, to yearn, get close to Hashem. And one of my Rebbeim, Rav Pesach Oratz, tells us why were they barren? Because Hashem wanted to create a possibility of something new out of nothing. Yesh me'ayin. He didn't want there to be a continuation from the previous generations of idol worshippers. He wanted to say, from here on, this is all miraculous. I'm going to give you a womb and have you have a child, even though you don't have a womb. Sorry, you're going to have a child at 90 without a womb, because I want you to disconnect. I don't want there to be any continuity or connection between you and the idol worshippers that went before you. We're starting something new. What is that something new? Ani lidodi v'dodi li. That's something new. I don't know, and I'll serve him anyway. That's new. I don't know. Humility. Anav me'od mikol adam. Moshe Rabbeinu was the most humble person that ever lived. He wants anivus. I don't know, but I'm going to do it anyway. In that we grow. In that we grow in humility. I don't know. I want to know, but I'm never going to give up because I want to know you, Hashem. I want to get closer to you. And Hashem is known as the Ein Sof, the never-ending one. And when we grow in our character, we become a little bit like Hashem. We also grow in character. How can we become like Hashem? Galachta b'drachav, walk in his ways. Walking in God's ways means to be like him. As he is merciful, we should be merciful. As he is compassionate, we should be compassionate. As he is truthful, we should be truthful. As he is giving, we should be giving. And all the events of our lives are there to push us to become more sensitive, to become more giving, to become more caring, more solicitous, more friendly to others. And that way we can grow in our character, we can expand ourselves, expand our consciousness. And Hashem is ever expanding. He is the Ein Sof, the never-ending one. And when we grow in character, in that way we can be like Hashem. We can grow like he grows. because he is never ending. He is infinite. And we can grow a little bit in our lives. Rabbi Yisrael Salanter said, it's easier to write the Noda B'Yehuda, the Sefer Noda B'Yehuda. It's easier to write the Noda B'Yehuda than to change one midah, change one characteristic. It's hard to do to grow. It's a very difficult word. And I'm not going to say that word. I'm going to tell you that word right now. I hope you won't repeat it. It's a very, very nasty word. But I'm going to say it once. And I hope you're not going to record this or tell anybody that I said this word. It's a very difficult and nasty word. I'm going to say it once. You ready? I want to make sure no one's listening. The word is change. Hashem wants us to change. That's the meaning of tshuva. Tshuva means to return to our higher self. Elul is the time to return to Hashem, to come closer to Hashem, to become the better self, to become your bigger self, to grow as a person, to not say the words that you were going to say, to hold your tongue and not say those words you were going to say to your spouse and say, I'm not going to say it. I was about to. But then you can't go to your spouse and say, you know, I was about to say something to you, but I didn't. So you're lucky I didn't say that word. You don't go and tell them that you were about to say something and you held your back, because that destroys the purpose, right? Keep it to yourself. That's self-control. So in our parsha, Kisei, there are two ways in which we can get close to Hashem. And they are discussed by Shlomo HaMelech in Mishlei chapter 6, pasuk 23, the famous pasuk, Ki ner mitzvah v'torah or. Ki ner mitzvah v'torah or. For the commandment is a light. Ki ner mitzvah v'torah or. The commandment is a candle. Commandments are candles. And Torah is light. Kiner mitzvah v'torah or. A commandment is a candle, and the Torah is or, light. There are two pathways to serve Hashem. Two pathways in Elul to get close, to yearn, to actualize that relationship with Hashem. Ner, which means candle, mitzvos, and light, or oraita, Torah. Light refers to Torah. Candle refers to mitzvah. The candle has a wick and oil, and it is the vessel, the vehicle, which holds and brings out the light, while the Torah is the light itself. This is the Maharal in his introduction to Pirkei Avos and Derech Chaim. That is why the Torah is called Oraisa. In Aramaic, we call the Torah Oraisa. A mitzvah of the Torah is called Deoraisa, of the Torah, because it expresses Oraisa. The same word in English as aura, A-U-R-A, aura, comes from light. The light is the will of Hashem. Hashem's light is the will of Hashem, expressed in the Torah. And that is why the Torah rests in the Aron, the ark. The Aron, Aleph, Resh, Nun is spelled or. Aron. The light contains the light. Oraita, or, and Aron, same words. The Torah, learning God's will, Kiviyachol, that he encapsulated in the words of the Torah. He dictated the Torah and placed his mind. Ana nafshi kasvis yahavis, says the Gemara in Shabbos, page 105. I wrote it and I placed myself my neshama, so to speak, in the Torah. We learn the Torah, we bring out an acknowledgement, an understanding of God's will. And therefore, we study the Torah to perceive how to live life correctly in the reality that exists beyond the physical world that we see. The physical world that we see is the vessel, the kli, which contains the light. And when we use our da'as, our spiritual enlightenment, through the learning of Torah, which seeks the true meaning of existence, then we come to become connected to the light of Hashem. The Torah is expressed, the light of Torah is expressed in practical terms through mitzvah. The light, the will of Hashem that we study, the will, the ratzon of Hashem, is expressed through mitzvah. Mitzvah means that we use our physical selves, including our mind, for mental mitzvos, mind mitzvos, the shiva mitzvos of machshava, the 6 mitzvos, midios, the 6 constant mitzvos that we have to think about all the time, also using the brain and the mind and the intellect to know there's Hashem, to be in awe of Hashem, to know that Hashem is one, to love Hashem, to fear Hashem, and to follow the pathway of Hashem, and not to distance ourselves, not to veer off right or left. Those are the 6 mitzvos, midios, the 6 constant mitzvos. We do also with our mind. We can think about while we're in line at the store, thinking about the checkout line, and thinking about, I love Hashem for giving me the opportunity to be in line here to buy eggs for my family. That's also serving Hashem. I know there's Hashem. Hashem is real. I'm in awe of Hashem. It's real. He's real. It's a reality. Yichud Hashem, the oneness of Hashem, everything is part of the purpose. I love Hashem. I love His Torah. I love connecting with my Maker. I fear Hashem. And I realize that I have to stay on that path, the 6 mitzvahs to midios. When we use our das, we fuse the candle with the light. The wick in the oil, the wick and oil, bring out the light. The mitzvahs, which are the wick and the oil, the candle, bring out the oraita, the will of Hashem. They fuse together. Ki ner mitzvah v'torah or, the ner mitzvah, the mitzvah of the candle brings out the Torah or, the will of Hashem. We express it in the world through ner mitzvah. The Ramchal explains that we transform physicality into light. That the law of relativity of E equals mc squared means that we take physical energy and we turn it into spiritual energy. The physical mitzvah turns into a spiritualization of a connection to Hashem. And our physicality and our physical natures is the catalyst for us to delve into our inner selves, to introspect, to work on ourselves, and to extract from ourselves the elevated spirit, the elevated light, the goodness from within ourselves. A physical body with physical desires and emotions and thoughts and hopes and phobias, the physical being and emotional being that we are, can bring out, if we work on ourselves and humble ourselves to take our thoughts and align them with Hashem, is aligning the physical being with the light of Torah. And that's how you fuse the ner mitzvah, the mitzvah of actions, with the will, the spiritual will of Hashem. That's fusion. That's mitzvah. And the deeper meaning of mitzvah, says the Shla Kadosh, is that not only is mitzvah a noun, but it is a proactive verb. Mitzvah is tzavsa. Tzavsa says is connection. A connection between the commander and the one who's commanded. That's tzavsa. Mitzvah is connection. We do the mitzvahs of Hashem. We physically take our estrog and lulav, the shofar, the kashrus, the candles that we light on Shabbos, before Shabbos. The mitzvahs we do with our hands, shatnez, and challah. And we take the physical acts and we align them with the light of Hashem's will, that's connection with the commandment. As Shlomo Melech says in Koheles, chapter 8, pasuk 5, Shomer mitzvos lo yeda davar ra. He who keeps the commandments shall know no ra. Does that mean he will never have any difficulties? No. Ra means ra'ua, means shaky. He will not be shaky. May we have challenges? Yes. But when you do the mitzvah, the will of Hashem, despite all the things going around us, you are not shaky. You are not going to be shaken. Es chata'ai ani maskir hayom. I'm going to confess to you that I once watched with my wife on video the movie Fiddler on the Roof. And we saw it on video, took it out from the library. At the very beginning of the movie, Tevye the milkman looks at the fiddler and he's playing his violin, his fiddle on the roof. And he says, said Tevye, what keeps this fiddler on the roof? It's precarious. It's on a slant. He's on the edge of that rim in the middle of the roof, and there's a side this way and a side this way. What keeps this fiddler on the roof? He said, tradition, tradition. And then he went to the song, tradition. And I said, that's a good deher. Halacha, halacha, Torah, mitzvos. That keeps us on the line. That keeps us going despite all the turmoil, hurricanes. That keeps the fiddler on the roof. That keeps us in line, despite all the things that challenge us. We are following halacha. That's our basis. That's our foundation. That's our sturdy foundation. That keeps us away from ra. Ra means not evil, but ra'ua, shakiness. We are sturdy. We're strong. We follow the will of Hashem. Halacha, mitzvahs, that's how we live our lives. In good times and bad times, we weather all the storms because we follow that pathway. Halacha, we walk. Lech, we walk the line. So when we perform mitzvahs, we align and join our will to the will of Hashem. And this creates dvekus. Dvekus means devek, glue, connection. And this makes us aligned and connected and protected. And this causes the Shekhinah, says the Zohar, the divine providence, to guide our every limb. When we take our chomer self, our physical self, chomer, and we align that with surah, essence, purpose, we take our challenges, our physical challenges, our emotional challenges, and we align them and we keep on that straight pathway of serving Hashem despite the challenges, despite the fact that they were not on the program, they were not on the piece of paper that our parents provided for us. That following of that pathway, using the inner strength, inner will to say, I am going to follow the will of Hashem, even though it's hard for me, creates an inner strength within us and allows us to emerge from the darkness and achieve light, to achieve clarity. Now I know why Hashem did that. In retrospect, I'll understand. Perhaps in the world to come, and perhaps even before that. After the fact, we'll understand, oh, that's why that had to happen to me. How did I grow from that? Let's not get caught up in the events themselves, in the scenarios themselves. They're not meant for the scenario. They're meant for the lesson to come out of the scenario. They're meant for the light to come out of that challenge. And we hold on to halacha. And we dedicate ourselves in Elul, in this month of preparation for Rosh Hashanah, when we commit ourselves in this month to remind ourselves that there is a king, and we're going to crown him as king on Rosh Hashanah, blowing of the shofar. The crowning, the coronation of Hashem is the blowing of the shofar on Rosh Hashanah. And we have to prepare for the coronation. This month is that preparation. We reflect on the year. We think about our challenges. I'm going to submit my will to the will of Hashem. I'm going to rededicate myself to my learning, my davening, my family. Then we create a spiritual life, a spiritual connection of ani ledodi, ledodi.